Yo, I am here just to give you a quick game development update. So let's see, where should we start? I was working on this, well not this is like a stupid idle animation I'm not done with, but I've been working on this, I don't even know what you would call it. It's like a wizard burst animation. Really, I'm just fucking around with Asprite, however you call it. I'm trying to figure out how this shit works. Got a little. It's not too bad, I would say, for like my second ever attempt at pixel art. But yeah, let's see the game. See, I wish the fuck command worked here, because it doesn't do flags. It only does like the actual command. As you can see, I got that little wizard burst thing up in the top left, and I've also got like a little carriage I made down at the bottom. I haven't got a horse for it yet, though. But if you want a little overview of how any of this shit works, I've got a big old Rust file that basically just it uses MacroQuad, which it's the Rust game engine that I have the most experience with. It actually holds a special place in my heart because it was my first ever open source contribution. Not that I've made many since, but it was the first one I did. And I use LUA to basically just expose a bunch of these macroquad Rust functions to Lua. And the idea is that, and I should mention that I don't think this is very performant. I think this is actually a really fucking stupid way of doing this. And that if I was doing anything other than very simple 2D texture rendering, this shit would get all fucked up. For example, I'm getting ahead of myself. The idea, basically, is that I create these, each level is its own Lua script, and then you can create as many different Lua scripts as you want. Each one can be its own totally unique level, you know, dealing with its own assets and logic and stuff, so that it's the most flexible possible, because I'm aiming for a more serious Stanley Parable, more serious and heavy quotes, because I just want to be able to put in basically any sort of level I can dream up in code. And I mean, I like Lua. This is honestly my first time using Lua, but it seems like it could be a good or a bad solution depending on how it goes in the future, because on the one hand, Lua is super easy to write. On the other hand, the way I'm using Lua in Rust in this fashion is super non-performant. For example, what I wanted to show you earlier, so you see this, I think it's like a bitmap. I'm making these fonts just by setting ones or zeros, and then there's some function I wrote up for it. Forgive me, I haven't worked on this particular level recently. This is the startup screen. Oh, but here you go. Draw inverted text. So this, I have either a white or a black background. I'll just fucking show you. Sorry, I'm a little fucked up. So you see the startup level has a white background, and it switches to black with this scrolling line, and then it inverts everything, and if we let it get to the text, it inverts the text as well. It's actually, I mean, probably it's solvable, but it's kind of difficult to do if you're just actually rendering text. Like if I was using the built-in MacroQuad text thing, if I want to, like, see, when it hits the A, we got to change only particular pixels of the text individually, which poses a problem if you only have the ability to like set the color of the text per each character. Oh, fuck, So, I wrote this little draw inverted text function, and we basically just calculate the pixels given that bitmap at the very top and draw those. But that shit, dude, is so not performant. That startup screen, I had to really be careful the amount of pixel manipulations in images, because I guess maybe there's a better way to do this behind the scene. But somewhere I'm like making a new 1920 by 1080 image every frame, iterating through it on the LUA end, and then sending calls to MacroQuad to set particular pixels in that image, and then taking that image from the CPU and making it a texture, and then drawing that texture. And the interrupt between MacroQuad and LUA there is like really fucking slow in some of these cases. Which, like, it would be a problem if I was trying to do anything more serious than just the most... Why isn't Harpoon working? Just the most simple use case, as you saw on that loading screen. I mean, have I explained all of it? Almost. I mean, how much detail should I go into? Like, in the loop, right now the minimum screen size is 1200 because... I don't care. If you have a screen size that's less than that, fuck you. We try to go full screen. Right now, it's not an option to do anything else because there's no UI or anything at all yet. So yeah, we have this level tree, which ended up needing to be an arc mutex level tree because I want to be able to like have. I can just explain it with code. See, the first level is the startup screen, and then within the startup screen, I actually exposed a function that allows, where did it go? What the hell? That allows each individual level to add new children levels to the level tree, and then also to choose which child level to create as the active level. Because the whole overarching idea of this game is that it's a very, I kind of mentioned like Stanley Parable-esque, so like there are many different branching level paths that you can choose from, and then my fucked up twist that I'm putting on it is that you can also, or it does also, delete the levels that you cannot reach or that you've already completed as you go. So it'll be I don't know the final size, say like a 200 megabyte download initially, and as you play through, it'll delete itself, deleting all of the inaccessible branches from the level tree, and you just shave down the game until at the end you're left with nothing, and it just goes away. Which is sort of the whole impetus as to why I put each level as its own LUA script, because I was thinking of different ways for the game to be actively deleting itself, and this was just one of the easiest ways that I could think to implement. Like, I'm not even really sure how I would go about doing it with purely Rust. I'm sure there's a way, but like Rust compiles down into a binary, so I'd have to like link different files, binaries together, and like delete the binary slowly or something, or I don't know. But since Lua is like just such a simple scripting language, I could just export all the MacroQuad functions I need, and bada bing, bada boom. You can just delete the Lua scripts as you go. And then also, ideally, I have not implemented it yet, you would want to like delete the assets from those scripts. So I'm thinking, right now, I just have one overarching assets folder, but I think there's going to be, like, the first level is called Forest. Like, I think really it should be, like, assets forest. So, like, each individual level has its own directory within the assets directory that we pull assets from, and then that way you can just add like a simple line of code whenever we're deleting the Lua script that also just deletes the whole assets directory that goes with that Lua script. But the way I'm handling the logic in Lua right now is probably prone to change over time because it's still early days. I've made Street.Lua, which is not even in the game anymore. It's just the very first level I made where I fucked around with inputs, and then I drew a little player. I figured out how I was going to do animations and backgrounds and handle inputs and all that shit. And then startup screen, I wrote because honestly I was like, how am I going to do text? And I had this idea of the inverted thing with the mouse, and like you draw shit, and I was like, how am I going to do text? So startup screen was really just an exercise in figuring that out. And then here you can see I've been doing this pixel art recently, because this is the Demon Woods background I just ripped from my mind. The carriage I made, but really I'm like looking at this carriage and I am not super happy with it. Maybe I should just switch to making all my own backgrounds so that I can have a consistent like size, because like look at the difference in the level of detail in these leaves and this fucking wheel and stuff. I mean, I don't know how long I've been rambling. I'm probably just gonna end this video here. I can, in future updates, as I add things and things get more hammered in, explain more of the minutia. I mean, if you want to just see like examples of the type of function I'm exporting, new image, new sound, draw tint, that's a little bit special. I just needed it for one thing. Load texture, obviously. Load texture, draw texture. You can add new levels. You can play sounds. This returns one if the mouse button has been pressed once. Yeah, screen height, screen width, mouse position, that sort of thing. Draw texture part is key down. Yeah. I mean, I guess we can take one last second to look at the main loop and macro quad, because it's so simple. All we do is, if we're not full screen, or if the screen is too small, then we just wait. We wait until the player or the user has the right size screen. And then otherwise, if we have the right size screen, the first thing we do is just clear the background, very typical macro quad shit. And then we handle tree, which that's what I was showing you or telling you about conceptually earlier, is the level tree where we figure out which Lua script we need to have loaded and like which Lua runtime we're using and stuff like that. Yeah, and then all we do is that every Lua script basically only has one requirement, that it has an update function, and that's the update function which we are calling every frame. So all we do is we look for the update function and we call it if it exists, and if it doesn't, the whole game is broken basically. So that is something, is that I can never. I mean, if I'm loading up a fucked up Lua script anyway, the whole game is broken anyway. So I don't really think that's a useful error to think about. But also right now I'm just printing FPS so I can see for myself. And if you want an example of how, because I was thinking about, should I do like a setup function and an update function? And I still might, but right now I'm not doing a setup and update function. I'm just doing an update function, and then basically I'm always just writing if not state.setup, then setup at the very beginning of each update function in Lua. So every frame we are checking if we're set up, but I figure that can't be a too computationally heavy thing, and it's not like this game is very computationally intensive. But yeah, so I just set up to nil in Lua, which honestly, that's, other than the fucking indexes starting at 1. Well, I hate the indices starting at 1. It's so interesting to me that nil is false in Lua, because I actually don't think I've ever written the word false in Lua, because I figured out that nil was falsy, and so now I just use true and nil. I don't know, that's just weird to me. I'm sure there is like a false keyword, but I've never used it. But yeah, all we do is we set it up, and then in setup I load a bunch of assets, and then I set up some animations, and then I set that flag to true. Yeah, and then we just do all the normal things in the update function. We handle the inputs, and then I update all the entities' positions, and then I draw all the entities' positions. You know? And then from there you can make the level do like literally anything that your heart desires. So that's all I got. I don't even know how long I rambled. 13 minutes? Damn.